Are we going to see an absolute chaos from the things that they do now to the results in the future? There's just this knowledge gap and also a trust gap. They don't trust the technology. They don't know about the technology.
The managing partners at firms are making $25 million a year because of a leverage model that's going to break.
The people that will be replaced are the people that aren't using AI, right? The people who are unwilling to adapt.
That's not a failure of AI. That is a failure of the lawyer.
The lawyers of the future are going to have to be sort of half lawyers, half AI, if not engineers, then experts.
In this episode, I am being interviewed by Dharshi Harindra, who is a tech lawyer, an assistant general counsel, and an executive coach. And she has her own podcast called Unbiased. She invited me on her podcast after we met at Legal Tech Talk in London. If my jobs are being taken over by AI, the only thing I need to do now is to upskill and learn and be valuable to law firms, because this is the only way that I'm going to get in. Obviously, there will be a place for the junior lawyers and the associates in law firms for sure. But many law firms that are adopting this technology, I think is going to be really competitive for these junior lawyers, these graduates. And then you've got the generation of millennials, baby boomers, and other people who are like, what is this AI stuff? What is this technology? We've been using paper files. Why do we now have to use this crazy stuff that's going on? But at the same time, they're like, well, actually, it's really going to help our work. So there's all these conflicting opinions. Yeah. But the main issue is that they don't have the time, motivation, generally speaking, to learn about this, or the resources probably. Some law firms are providing this training, but I would imagine this is very few of them. It's quite a forward-thinking thing. And in the future, I think it will be completely mandatory. So I thought, how do we help these lawyers? So I thought, okay, let's just come up with a free training, get experts in and have a full day summit and teach them about different areas of AI and how they can use simple AI to do everyday tasks. But also, I think it's important to understand about compliance and regulation and these things, because I've heard of a lot of lawyers using actually things like WhatsApp groups within their law firm. And for me, that's like a massive compliance red flag, like data protection, like all these things. And I just feel like there's just this knowledge gap and also a trust gap. They don't trust the technology. They don't know about the technology. So let's bring a person in, me, who is not biased. And I'm just going to present to you the training because I think you need to know about it in order to help you work in the future. I've spoken with so many legal tech providers, legal tech solutions companies, and in my eyes, they all tell me that they have the same problem, but I don't think they really know how to solve it. I think the main problem is trust. Lawyers don't trust them because they feel like they're being sold to, and that actually the tech companies don't understand the challenges of the lawyers. And so they're just trying to sell them something just for the sake of selling them their software, but do not understand the finite details of what those lawyers actually need. And I think there are a few legal tech companies that are run by people who used to be lawyers. So they have an idea of the challenges and things. But I think where they're going wrong is the conversation needs to start with, okay, what are your challenges within your law firm? Is it culture? Is it mindset? What specific challenges do you have that can be solved by AI, that can speed up processes, that can automate processes? Instead of going with this approach, I think a lot of them are just like, our software does this. But the lawyers don't understand how that applies to their day-to-day life because the lawyers are not technologists. They're not IT people. They don't understand this because this is exactly how I was. When I worked in law, I wasn't interested about the latest software. When there was a new update and we had to use a different technology, I was like, no, please do not give me a new thing to learn. I don't care. So I think this is the tech companies don't understand because they're excited about their new technology. And I think another thing is what I mentioned at the beginning is trust, as I say.
that they need to build trust with the lawyers. And there's a massive gap with that. And I guess it comes down to marketing. They're trying to push the features of their products. And again, lawyers don't care. It's like, how does this apply to me? We literally don't care. We just want to do our job. We just want to go home earlier. We just want to see our family. We want to sleep at night. So how is your tech solving that problem? I know that countries are starting to implement different regulations. Like I know Peru literally last week implemented a new AI regulation, which is similar to the EU AI Act. And there's so much debate around this topic of should it be regulated, should it not? I know the UK is pro not regulating it as much in order to be able to allow companies to innovate more. So it's a global debate, really, isn't it? And so it's going to be interesting as to how things pan out. In many ways, like you were saying, I am a little bit concerned because at the moment, so many lawyers specifically are using these different tools. But are we going, and this is what I think, in a few years, are we going to see an absolute chaos from the things that they do now to the results in the future in terms of, I don't know, let's say I feel like a lot of firms are rushing to use AI and technology to show that they're forward thinking and to try and automate in these things. But will in a few years it turn out that the technology that they use is actually wasn't compliant, or it leaks a load of data? And are we going to see some crazy cases in a few years?
Each week, I take what I'm hearing in conversations with legal leaders. I analyse the market and track emerging trends in this AI era. In my newsletter called The Future Lawyer, Market Intel for the AI Era, I'm focused on what AI is exposing, the opportunities, the blind spots, and the shifts shaping the next 5 years. This is how you see the chessboard before everyone else does. In this episode, I'm interviewing Zack Shapiro, founder of Reigns LLP, a Claude native law firm. He uses custom AI workflows, not pricey legal tech tools, which he claims can outpace traditional firms by mastering the arts of communicating with the AI itself.
Prompting is just a fancy way of saying talking to the AI in English. And getting good at prompting really requires you to do two things. The first is to be detailed, and the second is for you to be specific. Detailed is really about what in tech speak you would say giving context to the AI. The AI has been trained on an incredible amount of stuff. Basically everything that's on the internet is in the training data for the AI, but it doesn't know things like what matters when you're drafting a specific contract. This client is sensitive to XYZ. The counterparty is sensitive to XYZ. Here's how much leverage I think we should have. Here are the terms I think are particularly important. And so you need to be very detailed in your instructions to the AI to make sure that it gets all of the stuff that's outside of the AI into the AI so it knows how to help you. One of the things I do, I think that's unusual for lawyers, although you do see stuff like this in the software engineering space, is my prompts can be 2,000 words long. I'm not writing a sentence into the box. I'm writing an essay into the box. Or if I'm using the voice version, I'm sort of free associating or ranting into my phone for several minutes at a time, really to bring the amount of detail you need. Aside from detail, the other part of good prompting is specificity. AI, again, is trained on the entire corpus of the internet. When you leave any room for ambiguity, it just gives you sort of this fuzzy median of its training data, which is what a lot of people refer to as AI slop. And so you need to be incredibly specific, not just saying very specifically what you want, although that's very important, but also specifically saying what you don't want. Because if there's any room for ambiguity, the AI is going to fill that ambiguity with fuzzy, sloppy nonsense. And so the mental model for this that I really like is think about a really literal genie from sort of the stories you might read in childhood about you get 3 wishes and you wish for $1 million, but it falls out of the sky and hits you in the head, or you wish to be the smartest person on earth and then everyone else disappears, right? You have to be very thoughtful about what you want and describe that with specificity in a way that, I guess one sub skill there is like having a good sort of imagination to, like, in order to be able to describe specifically what you want, you do have to be able to picture specifically what you want. But we're not talking about like a technical skill. I hope it's sort of coming across. Like, you don't need to learn how any kind of code or dashboard works. It really is a mindset shift of something that looks much more like making wishes to a genie than it does learning how to use some sort of software as a service product. I actually think is kind of the most important white collar skill of the next decade, which is what I just described, right? It is being able to be detailed and specific about the output you want. I do think that requires specific domain expertise. I'm able to be very good at writing prompts for doing the kind of corporate law that I do. If you ask me to give you detailed and specific prompts for getting differential diagnoses in a hospital, I couldn't do that. Not that I don't know how to talk to the AI. I just don't know how to describe what it is a doctor's thought process is when they're looking for some sort of analysis. And so I think this is the white collar skill. It is like you need the domain expertise, you need good judgment, and then you need to know how to talk to the AI in this way. And whether you call that prompt engineering or something else, I think it is deeply important. And yet companies are not yet adequately selecting for this skill that I think is about to be just incredibly in demand.
Such an interesting take. I really love that. So you're kind of saying that, the role of, for example, a copywriter, you're saying that this could be a potential role in itself, a legal prompt writer, potentially.
I'd go further. I think that's what is going to mean to be a lawyer. I don't think you're going to be able to compete in the practice of law without using agentic AI in a couple of years. I'm just seeing this now, right? Like I do deals across the table from other lawyers, and my turnaround time and accuracy, it's just like an unfair advantage, right? We're not on the same playing field. Eventually people and clients are going to realize this, and they're going to be willing to pay for what they pay for. And so I just think the market is going to sort this out, that everyone's going to have to use AI. And then, okay, like who is going to be a good and valuable lawyer in the age of AI? It's going to be someone who, most importantly, already was a good lawyer. Now I do think there's going to be this, I wrote another piece called the 10X Lawyer about how I think this plays out in big law. And I think there is going to be a big resorting around sort of what lawyers are sort of best compensated and most valuable. I think at least, especially in big law firms at the sort of more junior tiers, there is an inadequate current distinction between what lawyers have sort of good judgment, good commercial sense, are, good at advising clients and helping them see what the issues are versus, kind of smart and willing to work hard and bill a lot of hours. I think one of those skills is going to greatly increase in value, and the other of those skills is going to functionally go to zero. A prompt is like, how do you get information in the AI? The skill is not about context. It is about process. It is step A, then step B, then step C. And so just a practical skill for, lawyers who might be listening to this, the way I created my skills, which is how I would recommend everyone do it, is like first get good at prompting, do that for a month or two, and don't worry about skills or agentic stuff at all. Just get good at prompting. At some point, after I'd done, heavy Claude usage for a month or two, Anthropic came out with this 33-page PDF you can very easily find online with Google about how to create custom skills. And I thought to myself, well, 33 pages is a really long technical document. I'm not going to read that. That seems really long. And so I gave it to Claude and I said, please look at all of my chats with you back to the beginning of time, read this document, and then pitch me on the 5 skills you think you can build for me that will make my life better and my work easier. And it did a great job. Not the, generic skills. It was like, it was specific to the way it watched me using the AI. And so it pitched me on stuff that was good. And so I said, great, build them. And so I had very useful out of the box skills. And then I continued to use my work as like this reinforcement learning environment where every time the skill did something unexpectedly good, I like stopped Claude and I said, wait, let's look at why this went well and update the skill to make sure this happens more often. And conversely, when things go poorly, all right, why didn't this work? Let's update the skill so this doesn't happen again. And so then the usefulness of these skills compounds over time. And so that's where you get like really this sort of like incredible efficiency and economy of scale. But it's not about the prompt, right? It's not about like, you can give someone a prompt that's going to work across like that is not going to work. What does scale across situations is the process, right? Whether that's the process of how do I think about writing a reply brief, right? Well, I do research and then I do this and then the section headings and the formatting should be this and what, like that is what's reusable. And unlike prompts, which I think like prompting is really about like being able to describe a specific situation in sufficient detail and specificity. Skills, I think, are going to become genuinely valuable IP that people could share or sell or whatever. And that's where a lot of sort of the interesting tech stuff lives.
It is so fascinating talking to you because you're just so forward thinking and so informed because you are creative with it. Oh, that honestly, that's just like blown my mind.
It's really worth trying out. And literally what I described, that step-by-step process of like, find that same 33-page PDF I used, like make sure you've used Claude enough that it has like training data, but then just ask it what skills it should build for you. It's going to blow your mind.
Whoa, I'm totally going to try that. Where is the biggest underestimated opportunity for lawyers in AI right now, apart from the obvious things about being more efficient with like, leveraging AI for their admin tasks and stuff?
It's not just admin tasks. Like, I guess there are a couple ways of answering that. One is, and this is pretty, like, all the advice I'm about to give, I think generalizes to white collar work and is not specific to lawyers, but is definitely true of lawyers. Number one, use AI for your hardest tasks, not your easiest tasks. It's easy to see how AI can like automate away the like routine admin stuff. And yeah, that's great. You should do that. But no, actually like try it with the hard stuff. Watch where it like surprises you and it can do work that you didn't think it could. Watch where it breaks and where the frontier is and like what doesn't go well, and see if you can like talk to the AI to get it better at that stuff. So that's one, I think, just like underappreciated. Like, you should be using AI for the hard stuff, the heavy cognitive lift. Another thing is, and I think this absolutely broadens to the white collar economy in general, like there's going to be a lot of automation. I think there are going to be fewer jobs inside firms in the future, but now is genuinely the best time in history to do something entrepreneurial. And lawyers are really scared of entrepreneurial stuff. It's, culturally looked down upon in certain circles to like hang a shingle, but like what you're going to be able to get done as a 1 or 2 person team or a 5-person team is going to be unbelievable. And if the big firms don't figure this out, which is absolutely possible, for all sorts of reasons, right? Like if, the managing partners at firms are making $25 million a year because of a leverage model that's going to break. And so they have that like giant blind spot because they're like, listen, maybe this is going to break, but if I keep this up for 3 more years, I'm rich enough. I don't need to worry about it. Like, what an opportunity to go and steal clients from people who are not going to figure out the fix in time. So entrepreneurial efforts, I think, like absolutely deeply underappreciated opportunity. And just like break some taboos. Lawyers are really rigid about a lot of stuff. You're going to be able to get just all of this automated help. Just like go out and try things. Try and take more of like a entrepreneurial mindset, I think, sort of to your whole career. And I think those people are going to be rewarded, whereas like being really set in your ways is not. And I guess the last thing I'd say, a lot of what I'm describing is, although it's not complicated, I'm saying very simple things, right? Be detailed, be specific, tell the AI to build skills for you. None of that is like complicated at all. Figuring out how to do it is sort of like a heavy cognitive lift. And I think one area where sort of AI is dangerous and leads to these sort of like K-shaped outcomes is, on the one hand, for people who are willing to do the difficult cognitive work, it's going to be an absolute superpower and you're going to have a blast and you're going to be way more productive. But AI also provides a really big temptation to turn your brain off, right? And to say, this is too hard. I'm just going to say to Claude or ChatGPT, just do it. And then I'm going to like pass off that. And those people might get away with it for like a little bit, but like you really then are not adding any value beyond the AI. And like you're going to make real mistakes because there are going to be hallucinations. And those people just absolutely are, their labor is going to go to zero. And so a lot of the caricatures of AI and a lot of what you hear in law about AI is like, oh, this like person submitted a brief and it cited all these fake cases. And like, that's not a failure of AI. That is a failure of the lawyer, right? Like, it's just very clearly, like, how would you ever submit a brief to a judge and not check that the cases you're citing are all real? Like, that's just not, and by the way, like, it's easy to build automated tools that do that for you. Like, it's really not hard. All of this is like, do not take AI as an invitation to turn your brain off. Like, that is the really dangerous temptation a lot of people are going to face. And so the mental model here is like, and I think this is underappreciated because lawyers are scared of AI and they just want to paint the picture of the lazy version. Do all of the hard stuff you're going to do before. Do it in some way that can be ingested by the AI. And really that boils down to you're typing it into a computer. You can even just do it in Microsoft Word. Just, this is actually another really joyful thing about it. Like, I can just mash my fingers in the keyboard and free associate about like what I want out of the AI, and the grammar and the spelling can be awful. And I repeat things multiple times and it's not organized at all. But then that doesn't matter, right? Like, it's 2,000 words of like mush, but it has all of the context that I need. And I just copy and paste that into Claude. And then it comes out as this beautiful contract, right? That's an incredible experience.
In this episode, I'm talking with Alexander Cardoz-Nieheim. He was the founder and CEO of SafeSign Technologies, which was acquired by Thomson Reuters. He's now the co-lead of AI research at Thomson Reuters, and he also sits as the senior director in Thomson Reuters Labs.
Lawyers will just need to be even better. The standards will need to be even higher, because if you are a lawyer and you need to be able to compete and grapple with an AI model that is already so good, you're going to have to be an even better lawyer. If you're lucky enough to have a computer science background, great, absolutely maximize that. But if you don't, I think you need to be upskilling yourself on AI, not just on understanding what an LLM is or on prompt engineering, but on really thinking about how does the work you do within your seat as a trainee, are there opportunities for automation already? I suspect that I have many friends who are now associates in firms who see some heavy manual process, and because they happen to know a bit about AI, they've been proposing solutions within the firm and they've been creating efficiencies there. So if you can create, I think there's never been a greater opportunity as a trainee to create significant value for your firm by spotting an inefficiency and upskilling yourself on how you might help to solve that with AI, or working with the innovation team within your firm to try to solve that. So there's an opportunity within all of this chaos for trainees to actually add a lot of value, more so than maybe they would have ever managed to add previously. Now, if we take a step back and we think, well, let's say we're not a trainee yet, or we're looking for jobs, and how can we remain relevant to law firms? I would make the same argument. The lawyers of the future are going to have to be sort of half lawyers, half AI, if not engineers, then experts. And this is something that I've struggled with. I don't have a computer science background, but I founded an AI research company, and the reason I was able to do that was I surrounded myself with very clever people who were in AI, and I really tried to bridge the gap between the pure science and the pure legal challenges. And so many of those bridges have not been built yet. So many of the connections have not been made. So if as a trainee or as an applicant, you're able to demonstrate that you have that versatility in your mind and that enough knowledge of both the law and AI that you can be one of those people that makes those connections, then I think you're going to be very successful as a lawyer.
In this episode, I'm interviewing Sandy MacDonald, Senior Director and Head of Legal Operations at DocuSign.
The people that will be replaced are the people that aren't using AI, right? The people who are unwilling to adapt. So for me, it's really been finding really narrow use cases, like understanding what individual people's pain points are, like not even necessarily like a function, like really going to an individual person kind of level and helping them see, okay, how can AI help me in my job, in my day-to-day work? We have this idea of like legal as the builder, which I think is really exciting. And it, I think we went from like IT was always the builder and implementer of technology, and then legal ops was, and like I love when I can build out my own workflows and create my own custom extractions and whatever. And now we're getting to the point where it's not even just legal ops. Like I have folks on my broader legal team who are like building their own agents, right? And I think that is so cool. Think about all the tasks they didn't want to do anymore, and then write a job description for like an AI digital assistant that would do all those tasks for you. And then we came up with like little candidates. So, I think my candidate's name ended up being Lottie, and it stood for something legal operations, something or other. That digital assistant was going to like take over all these tasks for me, right? And then I was going to not do them anymore. But that doesn't mean that I'm not doing my job. There's lots of other things that I don't trust AI to do yet. Maybe someday we will, but definitely not yet. And so, yeah, really thinking about those unique human things, how much more time I'm going to have to do those when AI is doing kind of all the annoying things like going through survey data and creating, kind of what are the key takeaways from boatloads of survey data that I got, right? That's like happy to offload that, didn't want to do that anyway. Great, now I can go work on something else really cool.
Wow, that's so great. I love the idea of building like a job description for your, assistant. I think it's fantastic. It's so cool.
It's a way to think about like how are you going to grow your team without adding humans, but also really thinking about like making AI really embedded as like part of your workforce. It sounds kind of crazy, but like if AI is doing tasks for you that you could have a human do, like they're basically an extension of your team, right? And so really thinking about like what is it that my Lottie could do overnight while I'm sleeping, like go through my inbox, figure out like what emails I need to respond to today, like just make me a list of those, figure out like what meetings I have the next day, like there's things like that would just help me show up more prepared for the next day or better prioritize the work that I do. So it's just kind of fun to think about. Like, I'm not getting a real personal assistant anytime soon, but I can have a digital personal assistant. AI, it's not a set it and forget it. It's not a one and done. You don't like create an agent or build out a Gemini gem or whatever and just expect it to function perfectly. Just like you don't expect a human on your team to like get it the first time or not need any kind of coaching and additional kind of training. That kind of analogy really helps me understand that you have to continually train the AI. You have to give it feedback. You provide a prompt, it doesn't give you what you want. Like, give it the feedback. Like, I didn't want you to write it in bullet points. I want it to be in a paragraph. I don't like your tone, right? These are like, this is guidance you might give a human too. And so when you think about AI in that way, it's just kind of a really interesting reminder that this is like an ongoing kind of training that is required to really get the most out of all of the tools that we have available to us.
Yeah, you're right. You've got it's continuous training. And I think this is where people go wrong. They think you tell the AI once, or you give it a prompt and it should know what you're talking about and it should do it perfectly well. And it's like, well, if you compare that with a human wouldn't be able to do that. So why are you expecting?
Right, like, do they have all the context that you have? Probably not, right? If you haven't, this happens to me with my team all the time where I realize, okay, they weren't in that meeting. Like, I have all the context in my brain, but unless I share that with a person on my team, they're not going to effectively be able to do the task that I'm trying to give them, right? And AI is the same way. It has no idea what happened in that last meeting that you were in the last year, that doesn't remember how you did that task last year. And so you have to really think about like giving it all the context, just like you'd have to give a human all the context before they can effectively do the task. The human is ultimately responsible for the output, right? So you are using AI as a tool. You're hoping that it's getting you kind of, it's helping you provide an answer back to your client faster, but you are ultimately responsible for it. And so you need to review, validate, check your citations. And so I think that's kind of the way we're trying to balance, like, yes, we want to move quickly. Yes, we want to give people access to tools. We want people to try things. We want people to play with them. We've got a lot of tools at our disposal across DocuSign from an AI perspective, but we also, we want to make sure we do have those humans who are validating everything and still checking things so that, we want no AI slop out there, right? I can recognize it in like a second. I know when someone sends me something that they've spent very little time reviewing. So focusing on some of those, what could be perceived as maybe softer skills or just like uniquely human skills, is something that we are going to do this year as a training program for the legal team to really show, like, in addition to, you needing to build your competency and fluency and how to use AI and make the most of AI and understand the risks and all of that, it's also worth developing the skills that the human is still going to be doing, right? Like presenting, like, yes, you can have AI do a presentation, and I know they're getting really good at that, but there is something still, very human about being in a room with a group of people communicating effectively. Let's get something to like 80% there. Let's try it and see how it goes, right? And I think, we can get kind of in that phase of, and this happened, I think, to a lot of folks, and us included, of like analysis paralysis, of like, I don't know what to do. There's too many options. I don't know where to start. And when it comes to that, it's like, just try something, just start, just think of a small use case, but try it and get your teams using it, because that will kind of snowball.